Morning. I am so excited. It's officially spring. Yay! I love it when spring hits, when everything's blooming, starting to get green. It's so fresh and nice out. It's beautiful, beautiful. But how many of you think it's going to snow again? Yeah. I can always tell people that have lived here a while because they know we'll probably get another. Usually Easter. I don't know what it is about Easter, but it always seems to snow on Easter. When the kids were little, I can't remember how many Easter egg hunts we had in the snow. So, it's always the new people that go, oh, it's warm, right? It's going to stay this way, right? No. So today is advanced container design. Last week we did salable gardening. This week we're doing container. Now, why it's advanced container design? I don't know. Like, is there a beginner container design? It's kind of, containers are fun. How many of you have done container gardening? Lots of you guys. It is so easy to grow containers garden, and it's so much better than trying to grow in the ground. Because if you've ever tried to dig a few holes, you know that that is the worst part of the whole thing, is trying to dig a hole around here. Very hard soils, very compact, very rocky, hard to control the moisture. Either you got really well-drained soil and you can't keep it wet enough, or you got clay, you know, about a foot deep, and it doesn't go dry. So container gardening is wonderful because you control the soil. So you have a much better success rate than you would if you're trying to grow in the ground. You can put just about anything you want in containers if your container is big enough. We have a big cherry in a container, we have a fig tree in a container, several roses in containers. There's really not much you can't put in a container. You just got to make sure that your container is appropriate to the size of what you're putting in there. So lots of opportunities to grow different things that maybe if you have a small yard, or you just don't want to dig in the ground, or you're renting and you think, I don't want to dig because I can't take it with me, throw it in a container. You can take it with you wherever you want to go. There's lots of dollies and different things out there that can help you with moving it. So I'm a big, big believer in container gardening. If you're in my house, my whole front of my house is containers. The other thing that I will do is, Ken dug me some holes, and what I do is I just plop the container right in the hole. So I'm still controlling, it's easier for me to plant in. But it's kind of buried in there, so it looks, you're seeing the pot. There's a lot of really, really pretty pots out there that definitely look nice on a patio or a deck. But you don't, I guess what I'm trying to say is don't limit yourself when it comes to container gardening. There's a lot of different things you can do. You just have to think outside the box a little bit sometimes. So, containers. I just brought this plastic one up kind of as a sample because it's easy to lift and I can show you things in it. We have a beautiful selection of the ceramic containers, and all of our containers are high fire. So in the wintertime, you can leave your container out there. It's not going to freeze, you're not going to get the crack and thaw. So you can just leave, even if you don't have plants in it, you can still leave your container out there. Good drainage is essential in container gardening. So you definitely want a pot that has a hole in it, or drainage on the bottom. People will get concerned, well, I don't want dirt all over my patio. Well, there's a couple things you can do. You can get a piece of screen, just any old screen, you can lay that on the bottom. And that keeps, the water will be able to go through, but you're not going to get the soil moving through. So putting a screen down there on the bottom of the pot before you put your soil in will definitely help with that. Getting a really good saucer, and you want a good one, not just, you want one that gives you some capacity for water. inch or so, and you want it an inch deep, and you also want it some size on either side of your pot. Because especially in the summer, when it's June and it's 100 degrees out, and you feel like you have to run out and water that pot, twice a day, if you've got some moisture in the bottom of that pot, it's going to be able to wick up and kind of keep that plant moist through the day. It's not going to dry out as quick. So saucers are a really good idea to use, especially in those warmer months. So once you got your pot picked out, potting soil is another biggie. We carry our waters, I can't remember which side is which now, waters. The waters potting soil, which is this one. It's a really nice potting soil. It's got a lot of perlite, it's got peat moss in it. You can see it just has a nice feel to it. It's not compacting. It's not, doesn't have a lot of heavy clay or anything in it. It's just got a real nice feel to it. Kind of cool to rub my hands. It's like, oh, this is good. The other one we carry is the Fox Farm. Fox Farm is a name brand. It's a great potting soil. It's a really nice potting soil. I tried it last year because I wanted to see what the difference was between the two. I can't say one grew better than the other. It's kind of what you like and what you're comfortable with. Fox Farm is considerably more expensive. So if you'd rather put more money into your flowers or into your container, I would use the waters potting soil. It's a really nice soil. You want to start with a soil, once you get it into your pot, I usually fill it about 2/3 full. And yes, use all potting soil. A lot of people ask, well, I've got this really big pot, and I'm just going to put annuals in it. Do I need to fill the whole thing with potting soil? And my answer is yes. You're going to be much more successful in the long run if you use straight potting soil. A lot of people thought, I could put rocks in it, pebbles in it. Yeah, just use potting soil. You'll be a lot happier down the road. I know it's a little bit of an initial investment, but you will appreciate it later. So using straight potting soil. If your potting soil, like this, I'm running my hands through it, it's got a good moisture content to it. I can feel it, it feels moist. If your potting soil is really dry, you want to moisten it to start with. You don't want to put plants into a dry soil. So if it feels pretty good, you can feel the moisture in it, you're fine. If it feels really dry, get some water in there, kind of mix it up. So it's got a little bit of moisture to it. I usually fill mine about 2/3. I probably should put a little more soil in here, but what the heck. I didn't. I think I dropped part of it, half of it's on the floor over here. Once you kind of got it started, this is when you can add a few little goodies into your soil that will make it much more inviting for those plants that you're going to put in there. The one thing that we recommend is the Aquaboost crystals. This is a polymer crystal. And it also has mycorrhiza in it as well. Mycorrhizas are great little fungi, and they help your roots. They help the roots of your plants even want to grow bigger and stronger. So the mycorrhizas are wonderful to put in your containers. The little crystals swell up when you get water to them. So they swell up and then they slowly release that water. So it's kind of almost like a little self-watering type thing. Great to use in your containers. The trick with this stuff is don't use more than what they recommend. Yes?
Sorry, what was it called again?
Aquaboost crystals. And it does give you directions. And you don't want to use more than what it tells you. This is really one of those products, use what's recommended, because if you don't, you'll have it oozing up out of your pot. And you'll go, what is going on? Because it does really swell up nicely. So use the recommended amount. You know I'm not measuring it. I bake the same way, in case you're wondering. Oh, a little bit of salt, a little pepper. Just kind of mix that in there. The other thing I would throw in there, which I don't have it open right now, is the all-purpose plant food. This is a slow-release food. It's amazing food. If you guys haven't tried it, you should. Use it in your containers, you can use it in your stuff in the ground, you can use it in your lawns. This is, what I love about this is, I have one fertilizer, I don't have to try and get one for my trees and shrubs, one for my flowers, one for this, one for that. So you mix a little bit of this in here. It's a slow release food, so it's not going to burn. This is going to slowly feed over a 3 to 4 months period of time. It's got cottonseed meal in it, guano, with some other really stinky stuff. It is kind of smelly, but it's good. So if I had some open, I would mix some of that in there, get it nice and mixed up, and now I'm ready to plant. I think, did we hand out those sheets? So the big thing with container gardening is how to make it interesting. I'm going to hand out some sheets there, and it's called Thrill, Fill, what's the third one? Thrill, Fill, Spill. You guys know. Thrill, Fill, and Spill. So you want something that the eye is automatically drawn to. So something in the center that is big enough that the eye is going to go, oh cool, what's that? And that's that thrill aspect. And you know, don't limit yourself. You just want something a little bit taller. This is a Dracaena. No, it's not winter hardy, unless you brought it inside. You could. This has a nice, this has a nice thrill to it. It's nice and tall. It's got texture. It gives you a really nice height compared to the pot. Sometimes we start with these pots that are huge, and we stick some tiny little thing in it, and it just doesn't really, not too exciting, right? It doesn't have any height to it. So you want something with some height and some appeal to it. This is a topiary rosemary. I thought this would be really cool in here, and then put some succulent type things around it, because rosemaries like to be a little on the dry side, so if you stuck some succulents with it, it's going to be a nice companion planting because none of them really want a lot of water. That could be an option. This is purple fountain grass. This will get taller. You know, it's not real tall right now, and you probably go, well, that's not very exciting. Give it a couple of weeks, and it'll be about like so tall. And it also sends out a really cool little plume on the top of it. So this is one I'll use a lot in containers because I know it's going to give me some height. So it may not be real exciting right now, but give it a few weeks and it will be very exciting. Shade or purple fountain grass? So you bring up another really good point. She asked me shade or sun. So when you're planting, you want to have plants that have like needs and like wants. So purple fountain grass is very much a sun. You can take the sun and just keep on going. It's very, very happy. But I probably wouldn't want to mix it with ivy, because ivy likes a little shadier spot. So it probably wouldn't be a good mix. If I was planting this in the middle, I'd go hunt down some more sun-loving things. Calabacoa, million bells, petunias, things that I know are going to be real happy in the sun. I think I have like Dusty Miller on the cart over there and a petunia. I mean, those are things that I'd be putting together with the grass. The Dracaena spike likes a little more shade, so I chose some plants that I know like a little more shade. Geraniums, I know they like the shade. I could also put in a cyclamen. Cyclamens are like my new favorite plant. Have any of you guys ever grown cyclamens outside? I started doing it about a year ago, just to kind of test them, because another gal that worked here goes, oh, I hate cyclamen. I'm like, oh, why? She's like, I can't keep them alive. I'm like, well, I'm going to try it and see how I do. So I threw it in some pots. I threw one in a pot that was shade, and it was happy camper. It just kept going all season long. In fact, it went through the winter, and it's still going. Then I thought, well, I'm going to try one in the sun, see how it does in the sun. I planted it in the fall because I knew it was a kinder, fall sun's not as hot as, say, June. And so far, it's really, really happy. It looks terrific. I don't know what it's going to look like come June. I may have to either move that pot to the shade or I'll play with it. That's kind of the fun of container gardening. You can experiment. You know, there's no, people get, what's the word? I don't want to say anal. People get too concerned. Have some fun with your pots. Try some different combinations. It may or may not work, but at least you've learned something, right? You know, he says if you're not killing something, then you're not gardening.
My question is, like she mentioned, the position whether it be the shade or full sun or whatever. Our concern would also be the deer.
Right.
Is this going to be a salad bowl for the deer, or?
It could be.
And the javelinas.
That's why we have these. So, yes, if you have a lot of bunny, a lot of deer, a lot of javelina, if you know you've got those guys coming into your yard, the other thing you're going to want to do is plant things, first of all, that they probably won't like. It does limit your variety a little bit, but better to limit your variety than plant a salad bowl for the deer and the javelina. The other thing I recommend is if you do, and you know you've got critters coming in, no matter what you plant, spray it right away with a repellent. What that's going to do is just really kind of discourage them from wanting to even investigate. A lot of times animals, is something new, and they're like, oh, it's something new, what could it be? So they want to go over and investigate it. But if you spray it right away with the repellent, they're going to go, never mind, it's not something I want, I'm not going to bother with it. So getting it sprayed right away is essential. This one is repels all. This is nasty. This is garlic and rotten eggs, and it's nasty. There's no other way to say it. I always say wear gloves when you spray this, because if you don't, you will be smelling it for weeks. If your pots are up where you're, like on a patio or a deck where you're sitting, don't use this. It's just nasty. If it's further out, you want to try it, go ahead. This one, I like the smell of this one. It reminds me of Old Spice. I was like, oh, it smells so good. So this one works on the concept of herbs. It's clove and rosemary and that type of stuff. So it smells good to us, but most of your animals do not like an herby smell. They don't like the strong smells of an herb. So if you spray this right away, to me it's a very nice smell. Probably not all of you like it. But it'll just discourage them. They're not going to go investigate. And you do need to reapply every once in a while, because if you've got new growth on there, you're going to want to spray again, because animals are curious. They're going to come investigate again. So you do have to reapply it periodically. It's not a one-time. You got to keep going with it. So it's worth your money. I think these are like $12, $13, $14. It's worth it because it's going to keep them off of your plants. Now, if you have pack rats, all bets are off. I can't help you. I'm kidding. This one actually, we've seen very good success keeping pack rats out with this. You'll see down in the store there's granular and there's the liquid. If, like on your plant, if you've got critters that are eating the plants, use the liquid spray on. If you're trying to keep them out of an area, the granulars work better because they don't like to walk through it and get it on their feet and their paws, because they're preening animals and they don't like it up by their face. So there's two different ways to use the repellents. It kind of depends on what you're trying to do with it. But good point. Okay, where were we? Planting, thrill, fill, and spill. So you got to find something to make your thrill with. And it could be anything. This is a pretty little foxglove. It would be gorgeous in the center of a pot. You could even say you don't want to keep repotting. You want something in there that's going to stay in there. You could use a little spruce. You name it. There's a lot of real cute little topiary things you could put in the center of your pot to kind of make that thrill. Here again, don't limit yourselves. You can be a little wild with it. Once you've kind of got, what I kind of do is to pick out the plants I think I'm going to use. I leave them in their containers, and I kind of arrange them to see if it really is going to give me the look that I want. I pulled the geraniums because they would go really nicely with the spike. But then I saw these. I thought these are a lot prettier. So these are ranuncula. The thing about these guys is they're going to be really pretty right now, and they're going to bloom their little hearts out until about June. And then they're going to go, oh, I'm tired. But I figured that's okay, because come June, I might be tired of them too. And I might find something else a lot prettier out in the garden center. So I'm gonna, that gives me the ability, I can keep my spike, but I can go, oh, I'm tired of this one. And yes, I do this. I'll pull it out and go, I'm tired of it. I'm getting rid of it. Yes, sir.
How long is a pot like the size you have there with all those plants in there before it gets rid of it?
This will go all season for me. So this will go up until fall. So some of the plants I chose are annuals. They're going to die out when we get cold and wintry. Some are going to be perennials, and they'll just stay in there, and that's okay. But this size pot is actually big enough to easily get you through the growing season, which is until about end of October, November, somewhere in there.
How about the perennial? How long can the perennial stay?
I've had, it kind of depends on the size of your pot. A lot of my big pots, I have different little pines and junipers growing in them. And they've probably been in there a good 3 to 5 years now, because their root system is going down. They're further down in the pot, whereas your annuals have a shorter root. So I'm just moving the soil up around it and replanting in it. So you can easily, you got a lot of time. It's not like you're going to have to keep replacing it every year. You don't need to do that.
Do you change your soil out every year, or can you dump part of it out and add new?
So you can. There's two thoughts. You know, if it's a really big pot, I would dump some of that soil out and put fresh in there. If it's a smaller pot, I would recommend just getting rid of the old soil, because what you'll find is you'll get a lot of roots, kind of clumps in there, and it's just hard to move around them. So it depends on the size of pot a little bit. If it's a big one, keep some of the soil. If it's small, start fresh. You'll be happier in the long run. So what I usually do is once I kind of figure out what I want in there, I'll rearrange it and see what I like and what I don't like. I am going to put these ranunculus in there because I just think they're pretty. I know they're going to bloom for a long time. So I'm going to go ahead and put those guys in there. I might, since I got enough room, put these geraniums in here too, because they will get bigger as the season progresses. And they may get big enough that by the time this is done blooming, I can get rid of it, and the geraniums will just take over. But it fills my pot right now, because I want pretty color right now. So I've got my thrill, I've got my fill, now I need something to spill. This is Bacopa, which I love. Kind of drapes nicely over your pot. So I kind of liked those, but I also liked the ivy. So what I like about the ivy is it's got some variegation to it, so it's going to give me a little bit more color. So instead of just being green, it's kind of the green and the yellow. So I might try some of that in there. I might put them both in there for my mood. There's a couple of different ways to think about building your pots. If your pot's going to be seen from all sides, front, back, all that, you can build your tall in the middle and put your color all the way around it, because you're going to be seeing it from all sides. If you're only going to be seeing it from one side, if it's up against a wall or in a corner, you kind of go, well, it's not going to be seen from the back, so I don't need to fill the back. I can move this to the back, put these more in the front, and have more of my things towards the front. So that because you're not going to see this back side, so what's the point of putting plants back there? fill most of your color in the front and have it hang forward. So it kind of depends on where you know you're going to be placing your pot. I'm going to build this one with this guy in the center. So once I kind of get an arrangement I like and I'm happy with it, then I know I can start pulling things out and start planting. So I've got my soils all ready. The other thing is, if the plants that you're going to use, if they are dry, water them before you start pulling them out of the buckets and playing with the roots. You don't want to put a dry plant into your pot. Because remember, you've moistened your soil, it's nice and moist. These want to be moist too. You'll just be a lot happier later on. Less stressful for them. So we're going to start with the big guy. He goes, dirt, dirt. You're going to want to loosen or massage your roots, because what you don't want them to do is just stay in that little pot form. You want them to be able to feel like they can move out in your pot. So loosening or massaging those roots, you want to do that. Like this?
Yeah. You like.
So this is what I do with plants that are this root bound. Okay? I take it, I pull the roots off the bottom. Everybody gets upset, oh, it's going to hurt the plant. It's okay. It's really root bound. It needs to be loosened up. You can kind of lightly loosen these roots up so they're not going to stay in a tight little ball. You don't want things to stay in a tight little ball. You want them to be able to feel like they can spread out. Loosening your roots up is very, very important. I'm just going to loosen it. Stick that puppy in there. There again, you kind of see it's a little root bound. It's okay. Because the other thing you're going to do once you get it all planted in there, you're going to water it in with some root and grow. And that's going to encourage new root growth. It's a nice little hormones in there, all kind of things that make those roots produce little fine hairs. And those are the roots you want, is these little tiny hairy roots. And this is not a neat process. Nothing neat about planting. A lot of fun. So I've got my thrill in there, I've got my fill in there, now I want to put my spill in there. The other trick you can do with plants that you want to spill out the side is plant them in there at an angle. They don't have to be just straight up and down. You can throw them in there. This is really moist, look at that. Squeeze the water. That one got water. Set them in there at an angle so you get a little more of that spill coming out. If I set it in there upright, it's eventually going to start spilling over the side, but it's going to take it a little bit longer. If I set it in there at an angle to begin with, you got a much better look to begin with. The other thing with containers is don't be afraid to fill them. Yes, things are going to get bigger and they're going to grow in. But don't you want a pot that's pretty to begin with? So don't be afraid to fill your pots nice and full. There's nothing wrong with them. I'm just glad people come behind me and clean up after me. I don't have to clean it up.
Can that person come to my house, please?
I'll send them over. I'll help you. Where's my, okay. So now I've got everything pretty much situated the way in there I want. So obviously I don't have enough potting soil in there right at the moment. So what you're going to do at this point, I forgot to bring my potting soil over, is you're going to start filling your holes. So once you get this in here, you can kind of adjust your plants how you want them to be. Then you got to start filling in the holes. And I usually just grab a little scoop, I get my potting soil, and I just start dumping it in there. I'm going to fill all those holes that are in there. Once you get it all kind of, you think it's pretty full and it feels good, you want to tamp it down a little bit. So you're going to take it and just put a little pressure on it. You don't want to push it too hard, but you want to get rid of the air pockets that will be in there, because you will get some more settling. Once you get it all planted and you think it's all full and you could possibly get no more potting soil in there, you're going to water it and you're going to go, oh, there's more holes in there. So you're going to get more, you're going to have to add a little bit more when you get it. Okay. So this is a nice big scoop. I love this scoop. So you're just kind of shoving more potting soil in there. And you're going to fill all those holes.
By the way, the clipboard that's making its way around here asking for your email. We're going to be sending out a link to the tape that we're doing today to everybody that's here. If you have some questions or missed something. We're also very interested in your feedback as far as what we did right, what maybe we did not so right. And we're really trying to work on this so that the people that can't come to the classes, or if you just want a reminder on something, we've got to have a little library of these classes that you'll be able to get to on YouTube.
Yes, so root and grow, this is a concentrated. I think it's like 3 tablespoons in a gallon. So I just get my big green watering can, pour some in, and then once I've got everything potted and I feel like it's pretty good, I've gotten the air pockets out of there, I'll put that on my watering can and I'll just water it in with it. And make sure everything's nice and moist. I would probably use it, not every time I water, probably about every other time I water for a month or so. That's really going to get you some nice, good root growth out there. So once I've got everything kind of situated the way I want it, I'm not going to take the time to do it today, but I would just really start filling in all those little pockets. You've got to get your hands in there. You've got to feel it. You've got to really poke down in there, make sure you've gotten rid of all those different little air pockets in there, and the soil is not smooshed in there, but it's pretty firm in there. Then you water it in with your root and grow. And like I said, you probably want to use it for about a month. The other product I want to tell you guys about, because I love this product, this is our Flower Power 54. It's a 10-54-10. Now that middle number, that 54, is a high phosphorus number. What that phosphorus gives you really big blooms, and it also encourages really good root growth. So it's a wonderful product to use in your container gardening, especially when you've got things you really want to get the blooms out of. You want to continue to keep them blooming. This you use about every 2 weeks. This is a water soluble, so it's little granulars. I throw it in my watering can, fill my watering can, and just water in. And I use it about every 2 weeks. So I've used this. This is a great, kind of like meat and potatoes. This is your meat and potatoes. Your plants are going to eat this for a really long time. This, they just had a Coke. So they're buzzed, they're ready to grow. So, but they can't live on this. You need both. But once you've got this, it's going to feed you for 3 to 4 months. I would probably use this again in a month or 2. I would just scatter a little bit on top. It's going to slowly break down. But this I'm going to use faithfully every 2 weeks during the growing season. Yes, sir?
Do you have to water more with container gardening than how often?
I can't give you a direct how often answer, because some of it's going to depend on the location your pot is. If you've got a nice shade pot going and it's in a shady area, it's going to take a lot less water than a pot you got sitting out on a concrete walkway with the sun beating down on it. My pots that are out in the sun, I usually water about every day once we're really hot. My pots that are in the shade get watered about every 3 to 4 days. I'm digging through here going, I know I got some. I buried it a little bit. This is a moisture meter. A moisture meter can be your best friend. It really, really can. Because sometimes, especially like my pot, how full it is, I can't look at the soil and go, oh, it's wet or it's dry. Using a moisture meter, you stick it down in there, it will tell you right away it's wet or it's dry. In the shade, it's really easy to overwater some of your plants because you just think, oh my gosh, it's 100 degrees out, they need some water. Well, if you stick a moisture meter in there and it's reading really high, you know you don't need to. Give it a couple more days. Yes, sir.
Old-fashioned, you touch the soil on the top, it may seem a little dry, but it can still be damp inside.
Right. And that's very, very true. You stick your finger in, you go, oh, it's wet or it's dry, and you give it more water. Well, it may not have needed more water. You know, plants do need some oxygen to grow well.
I tried to grow some vegetables last year. It was my first year, so my goal was to keep them alive, and they stayed alive, so I got that far. But as far as figuring out the watering, I actually got one of those. And when I came back to talk to you guys because I was having issues, they said I was putting it in the wrong place. What are your instructions for where to put it in?
Where to put it? You don't want to put it at the edge.
Okay.
You want to put it kind of right in the middle. Because on the edge, you're not getting it into the roots structure. You're not getting a very accurate reading because you're right on the edge. If you stick it in the middle of the pot, that's where all your roots are. It's going to give you a much more accurate reading. Yes, sir.
Is that something you can just shove in and get a pretty instant reading, or does it have to sit there for an hour?
No, it'll give you an instant reading. Very, very quick reading on it. Yes.
Do you ever use a drip system on it?
All my pots at home are on a drip system because Ken knows I get ADD and I forget to water. So where would your dripper go? If you're going to use a drip system, stick your emitter in the center of the pot. Don't stick it at the edge, stick it in the center of the pot. It doesn't hurt to have two. If you've got a big pot, put 2 emitters in there.
Both in the center.
I would probably do them like one on either side. Yes.
You can't take that meter and move it to the container.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, good.
You don't want to leave this in your container. Pull it out. You're going to take it, you're going to check all your pots. Don't leave it in your container.
So how often, approximately, do you have your drip system run?
You have to ask Ken. I'm not paying attention to that. That's detail stuff. I think right now it's running once a week because I still have a lot of things I have a lot of vinca and stuff growing in my containers. As we get warmer, we may end up running it every day. Now the pots by my front door that get a lot of shade, I don't put those on a drip system because I want to be able to control the water on them because they're not going to need it as frequently as those ones out in the sun. So those I just got to remember to water on my own.
So since Kim does it, you probably don't know the next. How long do you leave it?
Oh, come on!
That's a great question.
You want to run it long enough so that you're seeing water come through the bottom of the pot, which is another thing. If you're watering your pot, you got this great big pot, and you don't want a mess, so you just go, oh, okay, that's good. That's not enough water. You got to water that sucker. You got to water all the edges because if you just give it a little bit of water, I can guarantee you it's not getting down to the roots. You've got to give them a good watering. Don't just give a little half a cup and assume that's enough for your plants to be happy. It isn't going to happen. Water it so that you see water starting to come out the bottom of the pot. Then you know you've saturated the roots and the soil. The other thing that will happen with container gardening, and I've seen this a bazillion times, you forget to water a day or two, and then you go, oh my God, look at the plants, I better water. And you water it, and you think what the water does is it just pours on the outside of that root ball. The soil kind of shrinks back. And then you go to water it, and the water just runs down, right down the sides. So if you've gotten it to that point where the soil has shrunk back from the edge of the pot, you really need to saturate that pot. You may want to take it and stick it in a big tub and water it that way. Water it 2 to 3 times, so you water it, you go back and you water it again, and you go back and water it again. If that root ball, if that soil has shrunken back from that pot, you've got an emergency situation you've got to take care of. Because if you go to water it, the water's just going to run right down the sides, and it's not penetrating in the middle. You've got to rehydrate your soil, or you're going to have a problem. Is there anything I missed? Yes.
I just planted some, like, hellebore in a pot like that columbine draping over. It was kind of draping over in the pot. The leaves kind of hit the soil. Is that a problem? Are you trimming those off or what? Because it's down about the profile.
It's kind of, you probably want to trim it up a little bit, but it kind of comes down to what you're comfortable with or what bothers you or doesn't bother you.
Well, I mean, it's going to hurt the plant.
No, no.
It doesn't bother me.
If you wanted to clean it up and keep it cleaner, you could.
No,
It's
it's
going to
great.
hurt. So once we've got everything watered in, we've got water with our fertilizer, we're all good to go. And then you just sit back with your little cup of iced tea, and you sit back and you enjoy your patio and your deck and you drink your iced tea. If down the road, like 2 or 3 months down the road, your pot starts looking a little worn, my suggestion would be make sure you're using a good fertilizer to keep things blooming. And you may need to pull things out. There's nothing wrong with pulling an ugly plant out of your pot. If it's looking ugly, take it out of there, put something else in there. It's okay. I give you permission to pull out the ugly plants and replace them. Plants get tired too, especially a lot of these plants that just bloom, 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 bloom. Sometimes you just need to replace them. It's okay to do that. Yes, ma'am?
I'm wondering if there's kind of a rule of thumb for how many plants you would need for a particular size container. In other words, I have a rather large window box that's attached to my house. I can't really bring it in.
Right.
So is there...
How many?
Yeah, like if you're using, say, 4-inch plants or 6-inch plants, is there a way to kind of compute how many you would need to really fill something
If
up?
I'm a really scientific engineer type person, I could probably figure that out, but I'm not. So what I would probably do is go, okay, I know I've got a 2-foot pot. So I would get plants that I like, and I would find a space, and I'd start lining them out to see, is it the look I want? Is it going to be full enough? Is it too empty? I mean, take your cart, line things out on your cart. There's tons of space around here. Just start lining it out. Because I'm a very visual person. I have to see it.
Yeah, well, that's my
So
problem.
nothing wrong with just kind of setting it out and seeing how it looks.
Okay.
Do the pots have to be a lot round, maybe
It doesn't hurt.
sit flat on the ground?
A lot of mine sit flat on the ground. I think it's better for them to have a little bit of space. So if you've got a pot riser, you can put underneath it. It's going to give you better drainage and you're going to get better circulation. So if you can, I would say yes. Use some pot feed or something to kind of lift it.
Is that if you're putting it on concrete? How about if you're putting it down in the soil?
In the soil, I wouldn't worry about it because it's gonna, I think you'll be okay.
The concrete just gets too hot.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you talk about cleaning the pot before you put everything in the prior year?
So if you've had a pot that you're using from a prior year, if you've had problems with plants, if you had a powdery mildew, black spot, any of that kind of stuff, I would completely get rid of the soil and I would clean it with like a 10% bleach solution. Just clean the inside out. You just spray it down or wipe it down. That's going to get rid of some of those fungal and bacteria issues, and that way you're starting fresh.
Sure, I think one of my pots that had those marks in the
I would get rid of it.
and then just leave it.
Yeah, clean it real good. Use fresh soil.
Here's a crazy question. My grandma used to throw coffee grain up there. Large, is that?
It's not good. It's a way of kind of adding, making things a little more acidic, which with our water, we have very alkaline water, so it certainly wouldn't hurt.
It encourages worms.
Yeah. You like coffee?
Earthworms?
I do. That's how we used to get our fishing worms in Minnesota. It's just, you put coffee grounds down, put something over the top of it, and when you're ready to go fishing, you got all the worms you need.
Were they a little jumpy?
For that, two things. For that, I used diatomaceous earth, food grade diatomaceous earth, and mixed it in the top and covered it. And you can put that on stuff that you eat.
That's true.
And it completely got rid of my bugs. Second thing, somebody said that you could use coffee filters instead of screens or rocks in the bottom. Have you ever tried those? Those work okay?
I haven't tried it. I think it would work. It might break down eventually.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
I think it would work. Yes. Can you repeat her question right here? She was asking if you could use coffee filters in the bottom of your pot as a screening. But before that, she said. Oh, diatomaceous earth.
Food grade, not food grade.
Right. She used diatomaceous earth to get rid of her soil gnats, which would work. Diatomaceous earth is a really fine ground.
It's almost like flour.
Right, right. But it cuts the larvae. As they go through it, it slices their body, which sounds really gross, but no, they're irritating. It slices their body and it kind of dehydrates them, so they kill them.
And the nice thing is it doesn't matter if animals or anything get into it because it doesn't hurt your animals.
Right.
I actually feed it to my
Yeah,
dogs.
here. What do you do?
Yeah. Where do you get it? I get mine at the feed and grain because I didn't know about you when I got it. So.
We carry it in the store.